Hello YouTubers, this is just a quick video to show you some of the summer bargains that I've been making this summer, buying cheap records. I'm finding quite interesting and quite good stuff. Okay, first of all we have Peps Passion, Peps Blodsband by Peps Passion. And Peps Passion was, or still, well, he's still alive, blues singer from southern Sweden who started by making blues in Swedish, or rather he started singing in English but then later turned into Swedish because it became hip to sing in Swedish in the 1970s, or he sang with his deep, thick Skåne, southern Sweden dialect or accent or whatever. Well, he went to Chicago and made an album there, I think. But I think he got quite... he lost some illusions there. I'm thinking, how can I, a Swedish white man, sing the blues? It's not right. So he turned into reggae instead. Yeah, that's a logical jump. The reggae stuff, I think, is so-so. I'm not really into reggae. I think it's a bit repetitive for my taste. But when you mix it up with Swedish folk music, I like it quite a lot. This is, though, more blues. It's from 1974, and it contains a very famous Swedish political blues tune called Falsk Matematik, False Mathematics. And yeah, it's on this one. The records by Peps Passion, even though I think they sold quite good back in the days, but they are actually getting more and more sought after by collectors, so he's quite respected. Over to Rod Stewart, Every Picture Tells a Story, from 1973 on Warner Brothers. I found this in a bargain bin, not in perfect shape, but plays without problems and no skipping and not that noisy surface. I like the early Rod Stewart, the Faces Rod Stewart, up until the mid-70s. Yeah, Sailings, that's nice, and It's Not the Spotlight is one of my favorite songs with him. And yeah, I think I also made some good song in the early 90s. What's it called? Rhythm of the Heart or something like that. Anyway, this is earlier stuff, rocker stuff, and very well played. We also have even a version of That's Alright by Arthur Crudup, which is something I didn't expect to find. Although the most famous song of this album is, of course, Maggie May. And over to an album that, well, it's one of the most famous albums, and I've only had it on cassette before. And I've only had it on cassette for maybe 2 or 3 years. But now I got a vinyl copy. And it was very cheap. The sleeve was a bit dirty, but I think I managed to clean most of the gunk away. I'm not really sure. I want to know what it was. No, it's not perfect yet, but I'm talking about Michael Jackson, Mikael Jakobsson from the United States, and Thriller. I don't think I have to say anything about this album. Most of you are probably very familiar with it. It's one of the most best-selling albums of all time. Maybe still is, I'm not sure. I'm not really a fan of Michael Jackson, although I like the early Jackson 5 material, but you can't argue with Thriller. Thriller is a masterpiece, whether you like Michael Jackson or not. And now I got a copy. It's about time, really. I also found, for very small sum, this lovely jazz album, Oscar Peterson Trio, Put on a Happy Face, from 1960 Boobly Boo something, 66, 67 maybe. I have it written down, but I can't remember it now. Yeah, I know. And I think I've talked about Oscar Peterson before. My interest in jazz has faded a bit. I like the really early 1920s, 1930s jazz, and I also like piano jazz a la Oscar Peterson. Well, I like other jazz too, but though if I really long for listening to a jazz record nowadays, I either listen to something like Oscar Peterson or maybe some compilation of old 78 RPM jazz from the time. And on Verve Records, nice condition, very nice jazz music. Getting more and more material by Ike and Tina Turner, and I managed to find this greatest hits album on United Artists. It contains, of course, their most famous recordings like Proud Mary, Come Together, Nutbush City Limits. The material that they did for United Artists in the, I think, late 60s, early 70s. This has split seams, but it's alright. Records in fine condition, and a nice rockin' compilation it is. Oops. I don't want to. I almost hit the mic there. Sorry.
A schoolhouse outhouse on highway number 19. The people keep the city.
Over to the next. Well, the country guitar player and singer Jerry Reed. Been a fan of him for a long time. I'm still looking for Guitar Man. It's an elusive album, but I really want it. I haven't found it yet, but I've managed to find here a Pickwick issue called "I'm a Lover, Not a Fighter," and it is from the 1970s, and it says previously released on Capitol Records. That made me a bit surprised, because I thought he made his recordings on RCA, not on Capitol. And this sounds as if it's quite early material. He sounds very young, but I'm not really sure when this was recorded. It doesn't really say on the back sleeve, even though there's a little text here. But I'm a fan of Jerry Reed. I think he was an amazing guitar player and a great songwriter and a quite good singer as well. Jerry Reed, and still looking for a Guitar Man.
Well, I've looked across the nation, and I've got a reputation as being the fastest guy around at getting a girl and have her heart all in a whirl before she ever...
Yeah, over to something I don't think many of you may have seen. Maybe not outside Northern Ireland anyway, because I found an album called Wandering Country Boy by a singer called Ian Russell on Polydor. And I like the very simple sleeve with this guy with his guitar case sitting by the railroad tracks. Very much country. But when I started reading about it, it's a British issue, and this Ian Russell is from Belfast, Northern Ireland. So we have here a bit of a mix between Northern Irish folk music, folk singing, and with a country music tinge or whatever. I've never heard about him, and it says on the sleeve that it's his first record. I don't know whether he made that many records. Maybe he did. Maybe he's a living legend, or maybe he's a legend, at least in Northern Ireland. But I've never heard about it. But I have to say, it was a very nice experience. Very simple country music, but with a very British, or even more Northern Irish feeling and flavor. That brings a certain kind of sound that I think is rarely heard, especially not nowadays. Ian Russell, Wandering Country Boy, on Polydor, from 1968, I think.
Never going to ask her
her to marry me, for I know she'll turn me down.
Yeah, here I find a jazz album that I was a bit... I had higher hopes, really. It's with Humphrey Lyttelton on the Magnus label. Humphrey's About with Bud Freeman, with the sax player Bud Freeman. I'm a great fan of Humphrey Lyttelton, even, as a jazz musician, but also from the wonderful radio show whose... I'm sorry, I haven't a clue. I almost forgot the title there. This is... the main idea why I didn't like it is mainly because I thought that the sound quality was a bit distant. You didn't really feel like you were in the middle of the band hearing the lovely jazz music as you would wish and as you would expect from an album by Humphrey Lyttelton. But no, I can't say. I will listen to it a couple of times more to really make sure that I haven't missed anything, but not as good as I expected. Although it didn't cost anything. Well, just a little small sum, so whatever. Right, the final record in this pile is another jazz album. It's Kid Ory with this Creole jazz band. It's a very lovely sleeve. It is on the the Giants of Jazz label, and that was a record label that issued old recordings with legendary jazz back in the must have been late 80s. This is from 1986. They were available on both vinyl and CD back then, because I remember buying some early CDs with jazz music on this Giants of Jazz label. I'm a great fan of Kid Ory. He made a big comeback in the 40s and made some lovely live recordings, and I had some old 78 RPMs with him, and one of the favorite 78s that I had back then. I made a video about this long ago, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. It was A Là-Bas, and I was happy to see that recording is available on this album. And one reason, because that 78 RPM broke. It happens. Not that often, but it happens. And I was a bit miffed about the fact that it had broken. But those things happen. And now when I'm more and more drifting away from 78 RPMs, not really collecting them anymore, I haven't given up 78 RPMs, but they haven't been in my view for quite a long time now. But I'm still in love with the music, and I'm happy to find a really good compilation on vinyl. And this is a great compilation. One good reason they have stopped with this idiotic idea to put stereo effect on old mono recordings. There's none of that here, and that's great. That's one reason why some of these 80s compilations of old 78 RPM recordings are much better than those from the 70s or 60s, even if I have a special heart for those from the 50s, especially these 10-inch ones. Right. That's everything I have to say in this video. Thank you for watching, and have a great day, and bye bye for now, and see you soon again.